Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Aggs. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
that's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
So what is your definition of winning the offseason? I'm talking about this offseason, right? And specifically this year, right now, where we are right now. We get caught up in the right now as in like this exact moment, but I want you to consider the entire offseason when talking about this. What happens often is I think you get to an exact point, right? And then you compare yourself to others. You get caught up with what Texas is doing, what Ole Miss is doing, and you often forget to look back at the journey of what the entire offseason is about. So I'm going to ask you guys to be a part of the conversation today. Like, what do you consider winning the offseason? Some people might point at just signing day, but really, let's examine the whole thing, right? The entire thing. To me, when I look back at this journey for Texas A&M, by the way, this is TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. No Olin today. He's on assignment at home. Anyway, when I look at this year, I look at everything that takes place, right? I'm not just looking at what happened yesterday with this guy who went to this school or this guy who went to that school, yada, yada, yada. I like to let things play out the entire time because winning the offseason to me isn't about losing this guy to that place and this guy going here. It is about the entire thing. So play out the scenario. I do this sometimes for myself, right? Like, had I stayed at ABC 13, had I decided to go the business route in college as opposed to this, right? You got to kind of play the entire thing out. Had Texas A&M decided to keep Jimbo Fisher, how would things look, right? Potentially, guys would stay, right? There's some guys that probably have some really great relationships with Coach Fisher. They're like, yeah, I might stay a little bit. There's that scenario, right? There's potentially you keep some guys, maybe you lose some guys too, but the reality of the situation is the fan base overall would have been apathetic. How do I know that? Because I felt it. I saw it, and I saw how it changed the moment Mike Elko was named the head coach. So had Coach Fisher stayed, you'd still lose guys. Trust me, you would have lost some guys. And I knew of guys that wanted to leave, right? You would have kept some guys. Fan base would be apathetic. It would be kind of a rinse and repeat. Well, I got to see what happens next fall, but I don't know. I've seen this story before, right? That's how things would have played out. And you got to consider the entire offseason, the entire momentum when talking about how you evaluate an offseason. Would A&M have had a better recruiting class? Maybe. Coach Fisher's one of the best ever to recruit. He's fantastic. Would A&M be as active in the portal? Based on history, no. They wouldn't be as active in the portal. Because, again, you can look at history. That's why when I talk about Aggie basketball on this show, and while I am not content, I'm not happy that they've lost these games and where they are because of where I expected them, I do know that I can use the last 3 years as a reference to extrapolate, if you will, that they'll be better in January, February, March, especially when it matters in March. And I think you can do the same thing with Texas A&M's football program. So a macro look at it, I look at, all right, what are the things that would make it a successful offseason for me? Okay? Well, one of them was changing the coaching philosophy of the head coach. I think that was something that needed to be done, and they did it. Changing the culture. Looks like they're establishing that. Potentially changing some of the guys. Even some of the guys we wanted to keep. Sometimes that's a good thing. Getting different mentalities, different leadership, different ways of work in the building is building toward that. That is all part of winning the offseason. So where we are right now, is A&M winning the offseason? I think it's too early to say they're winning the offseason, but they are heading in a better direction than things would have been a few months back. Let's take a look at some of the other things that they've done to, again, I'm looking at the macro, not the micro, not the right now. Oh, looks like Walter Nolan's going here. Oh, my God, we don't have NIL. It sucks. Okay. They got an OC that I think universally, all these analysts, everybody who talks college football is like, man, Con Klein, that's a serious guy right there. That is a guy that people want. Winning the offseason is somehow trying to win back momentum. How do you win momentum when you've won 12 freaking games the last 2 years? A program that felt after the Orange Bowl, which feels like a decade ago, that you were going to be winning 10 games a year. You've won 12 in 2 years combined. You can't have momentum in that way. So you're going to lose guys when you lose momentum. You're absolutely, like, when you don't win, you lose guys. And by the way, when you win, you lose guys. Over the last, and I'm going to get audience participation here, but over the last 5 years, who has had the most momentum, you think, in college football? There's some cast of characters out there you can mention. Last 3 or 4 years, would you say Georgia's got the most momentum in college football, even though they're not in the playoffs? They have one loss in 3 seasons. Would you not say that they are, is it 2 losses in 3 seasons? 2 losses, right, Luke? 2, yeah, because they lost to Bama in the SEC championship game. So 2 losses in 3 seasons. They've got momentum. Georgia has 17 guys in the portal right now. 17, okay? They just found out Carson Beck's coming back, which is huge for them. But they have 17 guys in the portal, the most momentum in college football over the last 5 years, half decade. Texas A&M, over the last 3 or 4 years, probably the most underperforming team, has 15 guys in the portal. Ohio State, a staple in the playoffs. Staple every year. If not in the playoffs, knocking on the door to get in. 16 guys in the in the portal. USC, everybody was hot after Lincoln Riley. Ooh, that guy is good. This year, not so good. They've got 16 guys in the portal. Notre Dame, the team that Texas A&M is going to play to start off the season, 13 dudes in the portal. Florida State, undefeated, should be in the playoffs, right? Based on their resume. 16 guys in the portal. So everybody looks at like the guys that A&M hasn't signed. And everybody looks at, the fact that this team is signing that guy, failing to realize where we are in the situation and where momentum was headed and where it's going now. There's going to be some more attrition. There's going to be more additions. You're going to get a little bit of everything, right? That is just the way it goes. We got a long ways. And I may have to, be put on what's awful announcing after this one or whatever, hot take Jake on Twitter, like, oh, look at this take. It didn't work out. Look, there's a lot of time before this portal window closes and guys could leave, new guys could come in. There's no doubt about that. But you should celebrate some of the wins that A&M has right now, right? You should celebrate the fact that you've kept some of the dudes with the piranhas that are out there, the LSUs, the Texases, all these schools, Alabama, they all want your players. They're all finding ways to court your players behind the scenes. And you've been able to keep, I think, a nice chunk of them so far. Celebrate Bryce Anderson, one of your top defensive players from last year, locked in, ready to go again. Celebrate Noah Thomas yesterday saying, I'm staying, right? Celebrate that. Celebrate Cam Dewberry. By the way, a lot of these guys coming from a certain recruiting class. How about Bryce Foster? Everybody had him in the portal, right? Oh, he's gone. He ain't going to be here. He's gone. Bryce Foster coming back. Le'Veon Moss, your running back, right? Those are all huge wins. We all expect Connor Wigman to be back. He's talking about being back, right? Your guy. all part of how you assess the offseason, right? So when I ask you all, like, what do you consider a successful offseason? You got to consider where you're coming from and where you're headed. And while we use one eye to look at what's happening 90 miles away and what has happened at LSU the last couple of years, right? Like, while that is all natural and part of sports conversation, like, A&M's doing really fine in this offseason, especially considering where I thought they were going to be before the coaching change. Oh, man, this is not looking good. It's going to be a mass act. In my mind, I'm thinking, if they don't make a change, dude. I say dude to myself. If they don't make a change, they're going to lose some dudes. And they're losing dudes, as every school is. Again, you can't get better than what Georgia's done the last few years, and they've got more guys in the portal. You can't have a better year than Florida State had from a wins and losses standpoint and have more dudes. Like, they've got 16 dudes in the portal. According to On3, by the way. I looked at their database to get those numbers. So what do you all think is a successful offseason, winning the offseason? We all want, like, straight A's. Would you be happy with a 3.4 GPA, a 3.0? And by the way, this is 24 hours away from signing day, when we have our signing day special, and I'll have some more info on that tomorrow. We will do 3 hours of radio. We'll do an hour with Bronny in studio at 7 a.m., and Billy and myself will be joining him at times throughout that hour. But that'll be only for our premium subscribers, I believe.
Pardon me?
Oh, is that the voice of Nick Savage?
I'm not in the loop on this, actually. Can you tell me we're doing a 7 a.m., so we are starting at 7 a.m.?
Oh, I thought you were part of the conversation. We will talk about that.
Oh, my gosh. That's unbelievable.
What?
Anyways.
I mean, it's not like a show. It's a stream show, but we'll talk about it.
That's a show to me.
Okay, well then, you get here at like 4 a.m. anyway.
Well, you know what? No one's told me, so I'll let y'all get here at 7 a.m. and figure it out.
All right, good. And then we can have a meeting with management.
Okay. You are management.
Oh, but like higher, like real management, with real power.
Yeah.
By the way, that is Nick Savage. Let's go around the room and say hello to the people. If you want to answer that question that I asked, like, what do you consider a successful offseason? You can call us up. There's no OB today, so we can talk, right? We can have a convo. You can text us, 979-693-1150. If you do call, we'll pick it up on the Brian Foley hotline, Brian Foley Law hotline, I should say. Let's go behind the glass and say hi to the great Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning. I don't think you mentioned Shamar Stewart, who is
sorry.
the most recent, most recent Texas Aggies United post that came out yesterday that said he was coming back. That's huge on that defensive line. And I guess for me, a successful offseason, or at least there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into a successful offseason. But I guess where we are right now, a successful offseason is maybe getting some of the key guys that are in the portal for the Aggies back into the fold, like Walter Nolan, like, maybe Fadil Diggs, even though that might be a little bit of a long shot. Chase Besantis, if you can get him back into the fold, I think that would be huge. So at least for me, that's something to look at in terms of a successful offseason.
Look, you know what's a successful offseason we'll really know? Next year. Right? Like, next year we'll be like, man. Like, think about it. I think everybody was excited about Torian York last year, but not like you really got. Like, when you, like, this dude might start, and then he started, and then he was, like, awesome, right? That is all part of the successful offseason. We go to the right now. Oh, man, can you believe Texas got that dude from Clemson? Like, it's like that you almost are more mad about who others get than the people who you got. And by the way, A&M's got some guys. Like, they got some dudes that are already here, and they're adding dudes. And some of the biggest weaknesses and question marks that you have out there, right? Like, you're addressing it in the portal. You're addressing it. So think about that for a minute. Like, you've got to, like, you don't know until you know. And right now, I'm here for the ride. And there's some names out there that I want to get, right? Like, oh, man, I wish I would have gotten him. But again, the totality of the offseason, the changing of the culture, the direction that your program is headed, you have a really nice year next year. We're having a completely different conversation right now. By the way, I feel like I cut you off, Nick. Anything else?
Well, speaking of transfer portal, I don't know if you want to dive into that, but Aggies added there as well. I know we'll have a little bit more on him later. Luke's got some stuff, but Trey Jones has been playing college football forever since he was playing for Central Michigan in 2019. It was his freshman year, so got a lot of snaps under his belt, and that, I think that's a really solid addition in the backfield for the defense.
Not only did he have a lot of snaps under his belt, I believe he was the team captain, and to me, I like dudes that are captains, right? Like, the captain of a team isn't always the best player on the team. A lot of times it is, but it isn't always the best player. It's the dude who's no nonsense, who's going to bring it, that the players respect. That I love. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center for more information there on Trey Jones with Luke Evangelist. By the way, Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Luke, good morning, buddy.
Good morning, David. Yeah, we can go ahead and play that video in a moment.
Hey, actually, I want to pause you for a minute.
Okay.
So we had our Christmas party last night, okay? Nice time. I actually stayed longer than most people would expect it. I think I left at 9:30. For me, pretty late, okay? And I saw Luke with the most awkward golf swing. I caught you like after you had already surprised people how good you were. The first one I saw was a disaster. It was like terrible. And then this dude, like Nick, you would have been shot. Like this dude was hitting bombs at big shots, like straight bombs. I was like, dude, it's like Charles Barkley swinging, yet it works.
I believe it because he totally looks like a golfer. But I mean, he might be able to beat me in basketball, but he's not beating me in a long drive competition. I can promise you that.
Whoa! How do you know?
I don't agree with that.
I will bet like actual money.
All right, well, we can go set it up. Yeah, David, you're absolutely right. There was a lot of pressure put on me by the people watching.
I think Hunter Goodwin was one of the people watching.
Yeah, and I totally shanked the first one.
It was I was like, really this dude's
bad.
Good?
Yeah, it was really bad, but then I had to make up for it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Miranda, for a great event, and it was awesome. I'm still kind of festive from that Christmas party, so I've decided that I'm going to wear a Christmas sweater.
Is that a Migos
every day of the week? Yes,
sweater?
It actually is a Migos Christmas sweater.
And Richard just sent me a message, says, can confirm Luke was hitting bombs, but Will Johnson was hitting nukes.
Oh my gosh, Will Johnson
and
was...
Moose?
Ball speed was insane.
Yeah, Will Johnson was hitting it pretty much out of the entire arena. It was
I saw,
crazy.
no, it was out, like there, it was, I believe, over the fence.
Yeah,
like there's a far fence back. He hit it over it.
Yeah. The contact sounded like he was a PGA golfer. It was ridiculous. He's a freak.
He is a freak. But hey, well, good job, because I was like, this dude maybe can play a little bit. Some of those who can't play, myself, Billy.
Oh my goodness, Billy. I'm sorry. It was not looking good.
There was a point, though, where I was so determined to hit the ball correctly. I think I hit like 96 in a row until I got it right. And then I walked off happy. I walked off a happy man. All right, let's get to the news.
Okay, yeah. Well, hold on. Before we get to that, Jamie Murray is a sneaky good golf player. But yeah, I'll get back to the news. Yeah, Trey Jones, he was a team captain in 2023. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. And if we have time, I would love to show a clip of what his defensive coordinator from last year said about his leadership.
Let's do it.
Trey Jones is a hell of a player for us too. So I talk about, Moretti kind of runs the front for us, and Trey runs the back end. And Trey is probably one of the strongest leaders of our football team, not just the defense, but I think our team in a great respect. And there's a guy that he's got great passion about it. He cares. And for example, a little story. I wasn't real fired up about the practice that we had on Tuesday, and our guys weren't either. And so when we get together yesterday, we always start as a whole defensive unit before we break into positions. And he had actually texted me earlier in the day, say, "Hey, Coach, could I say a little something before before you get started?" And so I had this long reel, and I was at this rampage that I'm ready to go off on, right? And so we get started, and I said, "Trey, you want to say something? These guys come on up." And he said everything that I need to say, and I think his voice probably a lot louder than mine. Right. I said, well, that kind of says it all, and we skipped about 10 plays of clips that we moved on to, and we moved on to moving forward. So that was cool. His leadership I really respect, and he's worked hard at it. He does it in the weight room. He does it on the field. He does it off of the field. He pulls young guys along, and that's what's really cool about Trey, I think.
All right, everything he said there speaks to me. First off, I loved his voice. Loved his voice. That's a football coach right there. But he leads in the weight room, leads on the field, off the field, brings younger players together. Dude, isn't that what this team needed last year and the year before? I know they had some guys like that. More guys like that, Luke?
Yeah, I would love to have more guys like that.
Why is it so awkward?
I'm sorry, I was zoned out. If I'm being totally honest, I was
Why
reading text messages.
Are you playing?
No,
solitaire?
I'm reading text messages. I'll turn the computer around.
Hey,
I'm reading text messages.
There are people I have caught back there playing like games during the show, and I go to them, and it hasn't happened recently, and they're shocked. They're like, "What?" Like no. Nick knows. Like you know what I'm talking about. Like, wait, they're playing.
It's probably about to pick back up.
Anywho, continue.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so he picked A&M over teams like Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, and Florida. So when you see other top SEC programs going after this guy, it's clear that he has something to offer, and I'm really excited to see what he can bring to A&M.
I think you probably have a little bit more news. Let's hold that for the other side of the segment, or the next segment, all right?
Yep.
All right, let's hit a break here. Look, I can't make it funny without OB, right? I'm talking Fargo's. Like, I know it's sometimes awkward. I can't. So I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to tell you, you may think it's an act. I've gone to Fargo's with OB, and he moans, okay? It's like When Harry Met Sally, which I know that some of our audience has never seen that movie, but that's OB when he goes to Fargo's. He loves it.
You somehow made it better without him.
What do you
mean?
So
continue, please.
Well, how did I make it better without him?
Just keep going.
All right. Anywho, do people actually say anywho? Fargo's is a place to go if you want to make moans when you go eat. Great food, delicious, meat dessert as OB talks about, and every day they have different specials. Jump on the specials out there, and you can have yourself a good one. Today is Tuesday, which means rib tips, which means OB is probably skipping work to be there at Fargo's to get the rib tips because you want to be first in line to get it because it sells out quickly. You want to go to Fargo's Tuesday through Saturday. They got rib tips on Saturdays as well. They've been a part of this community for over 22 years. Football weekends, office parties, weddings, anniversaries, funerals, dinners, any gathering or celebration done the right way. 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan. Without a doubt, the what? Luke, help me.
The best barbecue in town.
Thank you very much. You know that's their trademark.
Because it's true.
I don't know if it works without OB, but it still works. It's Fargo's. Check it out. Welcome back in. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. All right, let's continue on at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center before we do the Apex Performance of the Week because we had to cut off Luke Evangelist. A couple of little notes that I didn't hit on the party, Luke. You can back me up on this. Nick, I know you were busy last night.
Yeah, is this just a rub it in Nick's face day?
No, man.
I think me and Zoe back here weren't there. So.
I think hanging out with your wife is a win.
Oh, she's not my wife yet. She's my fiance. But yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Fiance. It's a win. So you win. What I was going to say is that one part of the story that we have not brought up is Bronny bringing his fungo bat. Yeah, to Big
Pretty
shots.
sure you can't do that.
Well, he did it. And was he hitting bombs, Luke?
No.
Yes,
no.
he was with the fungo bat.
No, he was not.
He hit it almost across the fence.
Okay, I think we were watching at different times, but I saw it when he first pulled it out, and it was miss, ground out, pop out. It was not looking good.
But did you see young Richard Zane when he took the fungo bat? What happened?
I feel like I'm going to say he was hitting well, but you may have seen something different.
Well, he hit at one point, I'd call a foul. Fungal bat hit, right? It went directly up and hit like a metal roof, whatever, and made a loud sound like a bomb had just gone off. And people just continued on like it was not a big deal. Did you not see that happen?
I think I heard that happening. I was just in my own world, though, kind of hitting my bombs. But no, Richard was...
Oh, see, humble brag.
Yeah. Richard, he was doing pretty well. I was just more surprised that Bronny actually brought it. Bringing your own driver is like kind of acceptable, but to bring a bat to a golfing range, it was just so on brand for him, honestly. Just classic Broninger.
Classic Bronathan James. All right, let's continue with your news before we do it.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Aggie women's basketball. They were playing during that Christmas party. Normally we're their good luck charm, but I guess they didn't need us last night because they won by 50 against Mississippi Valley State. Janiyah Barker had 20 points, 11 rebounds. Lauren Ware, 11 points and 10 rebounds. That is their 8th straight win after they had only 7 in the regular season all of last year. They have 10 wins now after having 9 all of last year, if you count the SEC tournament. That's pretty remarkable for a turnaround for Joni Taylor. They're receiving 13 votes in the most recent AP poll, which has them at 28th. And they're beating their opponents by an average of 32.4 points per game on this 8-game winning streak.
Love it. Love it. We're going to have Joni on the show at 9:48-ish. By the way, I never gave you guys an update on the program. Just found out Billy Liucci is going to join us here in about 7 minutes or so. We'll talk to him a little bit about some of the news that happened overnight. Talk to Jason Howell at 9 o'clock. Get you ready for signing day. As I mentioned, Joni Taylor at 9:50. Charean Williams at 10 o'clock. Usually she joins us at 8:35, but she had to push it back a little bit. And then John Pugliese will be in studio, believe it or not. He's in town. He's a man who lives, I believe he lives in Vegas. Now, he used to live here in the community. He'll be in studio at 10:35 to talk a little Aggie basketball. All right. You have anything else for us, young Luke?
That's it for now.
Thank you very much. Now it is time for the Apex Performance of the Week presented by Apex Health. Feel like you're losing your edge. It could be low testosterone. Increase your energy, sharpen your focus, and boost your performance with a custom treatment plan from Apex Health. Learn more at apexhealthclinic.com. They are owned and operated by a veteran serving the Brazos Valley. It is Apex and the Apex Performance of the Week. I think this one's simple. Wade Taylor. What award did he win overnight, Luke?
The SEC Player of the Week.
And why did he do that?
Because he's really good.
34 points against Houston, 10 of 22, 6 of 14 from three-point line, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. The guy was an assassin in that game. He put A&M on his back and brought them back in that game. A 21-point deficit, comes back. Wade was phenomenal. And I think the part about Wade's performance to me that speaks the most is that one of the best defenses in the country, if not the best, could not stop him, right? And this is after he's had, some rough performances shooting, and they simplified it. They allowed him just to do what he does, and he came up big. It was a little too they came up short, but that should be a preview of what we might see in SEC play. Not that he's going to score 34 points a game, but his ability to change the game, his ability to attack and hit threes. Once he attacks, how it opens up the lane is phenomenal. And the other one I want to give props to is A&M's women's basketball team, 10 wins on the season, a beatdown yesterday, and the way they have played this year. Look, It's about to get hard in a couple weeks for everybody, right? Once conference play starts. But this is a different team. They're headed in the right direction. They're getting so many players to contribute. Very pumped about what we've seen from them. All right, a moment now for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. You want deals, you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You want a good car, you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. You want great customer service, you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. What else do they have? Well, they have the entire experience is phenomenal. Complimentary pickup for their service customers. They've got the best selection. They got a great trade-in value. You go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet because that's where a bunch of Aggies go. R.C. Slocum only gets his cars there from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Dante Hall's gotten vehicles there. Billy Liucci's got them. I got our Tahoe a year ago, about a year and a half ago or so, from Caldwell Country Chevrolet because of everything I've talked about, they lived up to. The great customer service, the great trade-in value, and the great selection of vehicles. Check out the website to get more information. It's not a far drive, guys. We're talking 15 minutes. Bryan to Caldwell, short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. National Signing Day tomorrow. We'll have a full show for you. 3 hours, as I mentioned, of live radio. We'll have an hour before the show where Bronny and he'll have some appearances from Billy and myself throughout that first hour, just for our premium subscribers. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. We're joined by TexAgs co-owner and executive editor Billy Liucci. Billy, good morning, buddy.
David Nuño, how are you?
Good, man. I had fun last night. Did you?
Yeah, of course.
Good. I liked.
I'm glad you had fun.
What's that?
It's good to get you in public.
Yeah, I don't do a lot. And I think I stayed late till 9:30. That's late for me.
I do too. And you didn't stay. No one stayed much later than you. I think I was home by 10 o'clock. So I think you pretty much ended the party once you left.
I want to point out to you that there's been a couple times you've been surprised. If I go out, I go out. Like, I think we were in Nashville, and I stayed late.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
All right, let's.
I wish you would have stayed later because I was stuck with Zane the rest of that night in Nashville. So if I could have swapped y'all out, I would have.
Is that the infamous night? I'll talk about our off air because I think I remember some of the details of that evening.
Yeah, and you can tell the mustachioed former favorite of mine who's sitting over there a few feet from you that if he takes shots at my golf, this is why people don't do things that they don't do. This is why people like me don't golf, because of people like the mustachioed, afroed former favorite of mine who's a nice New York football giant Christmas sweater last night. They try to get people like me and you who have never golfed in our life to go hit golf balls, and then they come on radio and laugh about it. That's why Bronny didn't hit golf balls. He was smarter.
Well, Billy, that's the same gentleman who said after I beat Nick, he would beat me in basketball. So I just want to make sure that he realizes I'm ready to play any day, anytime. Now, we can play that, little golf game.
I think you need to set that up.
I offered to do it yesterday. He was not willing. He needs more time to prepare. Hey, I asked a question at the top of the show. Just curious your thoughts.
The televangelist was smoking those golf balls though, but I would put him a distant third, like he said, behind Will Johnston and also Moose. Moose was really good.
Moose was really, really good. Hey, Billy, what would you consider a successful winning offseason for A&M? Like, in your eyes, considering where this program's been the last 3 years, let's say we get to August, whatever cutoff line you want to say for the end of the offseason, what would you consider a successful offseason?
I think getting keeping the guys that are still on the roster. You guys that have been listening know that I've never felt very comfortable with Evan Stewart remaining. So to me, probably I'd like to see them add another receiver, another linebacker, another corner. By the way, my dog's not happy with us right now. He's ready for his walk. So don't mind Griff. But I'd like to see him add. Let's just put it this way. Add some more meaningful guys out of the portal at several positions. Whether that's 3, 4, 5 more players, doesn't matter. Just round out the roster to where you're filling the areas of weakness or that need upgrade. I'd love to keep both, but keep either Walter Nolan or Shamar Turner. Like, in other words, Shamar Turner is NFL or stay. Walter Nolan is, obviously he's looking at, Ole Miss and whoever else might pop up. But I would say one of those two on your D-line, 2 obviously would be optimal. But if you keep one, I think you can feel the nasty defensive line day one under Elko. Give him a great quarterback day one under Elko. And you can win some stuff. You can do some stuff. But, and I think from there, it's him rounding out that coaching staff and to where we're really impressed with it. when it's all put together and comes together, because there's still a lot to go into that one. Linebackers coach, defensive coordinator, wide receivers coach will be a big hire. So there's a lot left to be done that I'm pretty interested in. I think that there's your successful offseason. Just kind of stem the tide and get to the actual offseason, which to me is kind of begins in January when the kids get back to school. Get to that point, and it's a successful offseason. As far as recruiting goes, I think finish with a couple pleasant surprises here early and do a little more damage late. Get a couple big names late. I mean, look, in year one, we saw it under Jimbo, and it was even a lot easier without the portal, without NIL. But you're going to have to make some noise in February, although I wouldn't expect, the Aggies just to clean house and surge up into the top, 6 or 8 of the rankings or anything like that.
Billy, I mentioned that keeping some of these dudes that, were iffy, Shamar Stewart coming back, is a huge win for this defensive line.
That's a massive development for the Aggie defensive line and the A&M defense and just the program in general. I mean, look, so much is made about these 5-star signees and what they're doing. And look, I'm looking at Shamar Stewart, who's now going into year 3, who was really – I actually did talk to Elijah down the stretch there before he took the Syracuse job. And one of the guys, somebody we were with, was like kind of trying to downplay maybe Shamar Stewart. And Elijah was like, no. He said, he's doing this. And he just did his hand up like a rocket ship. He said that he's, second half of the year, he got a lot better. Like he was playing. He said, you go back and look at how many sacks he was right there close to getting, like several that he was just about to finish on. He's gotten a lot better. I think he can be a difference maker next year. Along the D-line, a veteran. Look, you're not going to get Fadil Diggs back. I think he's gone radio silent. Syracuse offered his brother. This is one of those deals. Like, take whatever you were going to pay him and spend it elsewhere. Okay? That's why Shamar Stewart's part of why he's so important, too. You need veterans up front. If you can bring back Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, Albert Regis, but Malik Silla going into year 3 now. But you look to it, the 5 stars that everybody talks about, oh, this guy's gone, that guy's gone, that guy's gone. You look at those 5 stars, Shamar Stewart's still here. Gabe Brownlow-Dindy's still here. There's an opportunity for him. DJ Hicks is going into year 2. There's some real D linemen still out there. One to watch really closely this week is, it's going to be Dom McKinley because, I know our man Pate, I believe it was Pate, somebody said if he signs somewhere Wednesday, it won't be A&M. I agree with that, but hopefully he doesn't sign with anybody Wednesday. Elko gets that DC hired. Maybe A&M gets some momentum on the recruiting front, and they can hang on to that one because they can feel a nasty defensive line next year if one of Shamar or Walt comes back. If both those guys end up returning, along with Shamar Stewart and the other pieces we just talked about, I think Texas A&M could have as good a D-line as there is in the conference. Again, despite everything people are talking about.
Talking to Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Billy, Trey Jones, super intrigued by his resume. I mentioned the fact that he was a captain there at Central Michigan. It really intrigues me. Just another big addition there to the defensive backfield that A&M desperately needed.
Yeah, and look, he's a 210-pound guy. And you look at A&M's not that big at safety right now. None of those guys are that big. I'm excited about the safety position with Bryce leading the way, Jacoby I think getting coached up in a defense that really loves its safeties and what Mike Elko likes to do. But what he doesn't really have is big body, physical safety. And you're getting that in Trey Jones. And like you guys you played the clip, he's a 2-time captain. The other thing you're getting a leader, I think a winning attitude guy, a guy that's going to bring everybody up around. And I think with his body style, with his body shape, size, I think he can be pretty versatile back there for Mike Elko too. And obviously really physical. You look at a guy that's made 150 tackles the last 2 years. He's finding the football. He's durable, and he's not scared to come up downhill and hit somebody. So I think that's pretty significant addition for A&M. And look, you want to know what his tape looks like? You look at all the offers he had. Look at the schools that were recruiting him out of Central Michigan. This is a real guy, and this is a guy that a lot of SEC teams that win a lot of games play for him.
Billy, we'll see you tomorrow morning here on our signing day special.
All right, Yoda. See you tomorrow.
Later, buddy. Billy Liucci on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, we'll pay off what we've been teasing. We'll read those text messages. Get your thoughts on exactly what would be a successful offseason. Billy laid out his plan. I've laid out mine. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing, and I think we're trending in the right direction. You can do that at 979-693-1150. Right now, we're talking Heritage Films. It's holiday time, guys. If you were listening at home, maybe you got a little early time off, or maybe you're at work and you're like, man, what is something I can do? Why don't you schedule a shoot with Chance McClain and get your family biography done, your documentary done about your family, right? It could be the entire family, right? Everybody. It can be about one person in your family you want to honor. Maybe you want to tell your story. Like, hey, I don't know if my kids know this part of my story. They've known I've done this, this, and this, but they don't know how I got here. And maybe I want my grandkids at some point to know it, and their grandkids, and so on and so on. That's what you can do with Heritage Films. Chance McClain does these documentaries that are top-notch, the best. He does documentaries about normal people, and you should take advantage of it. Another thing you can do is do a year flicks, right? You've got a 15-year-old kid at home, sophomore in high school, about to start driving. Tell that story, right? 20-minute year flick story, benchmark video, then talk about where they how they did on the SATs, and then in a couple years, what college they're going to, and then in a couple years, another one, like what major they pick when they go to Texas A&M, of course, and have this 4-part, 5-part little benchmark video documentary series done on your kid, 20-minute versions of a similar thing, but more Q&A form. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, or you can call Chance up directly, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341 is Heritage Films. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. If you want to be part of the conversation, call us up on the Brian Foley Law hotline. Good people can have a bad day. Call Brian Foley Law at 936-596-0407, serving Houston, the Woodlands, Conroe, and the Brazos Valley. We go there to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center where we find Luke Evangelist, who's going to read some of these text messages on a successful offseason from the people and also from the YouTube chat, texags.com.
Yeah, Chase in Houston said that a successful offseason is beating Notre Dame in Game 1.
Okay. I hope they do a lot more than that. But, yeah, I mean, that would make it feel a lot better. Because let me ask you all this question. What would be your level of optimism going into that game if the regime change didn't happen? I don't know how I feel about that game right now because I want to see how the roster kind of shakes out. But I feel good about the direction we're going. We'll see how their roster, because they got a bunch of dudes in the portal, and our roster shakes out. Luke, what else?
Chip says a successful offseason begins and ends with Elko and Moffitt establishing their culture in the Bright Complex. We have the players. Can they buy into Moffitt's program and Elko's vision?
We do have the players. I want to add some more players to that conversation. The Moffitt hire to me is, I don't want to say it is the home run hire, but it sure feels like, I mean, it is a home run hire. I don't know if it's the home run hire because there have been some other ones, right? Colin Klein to me is one of those like, man, I'm excited to see what this young man can do. So, but yeah, once that identity, and I think the identity's already started. By the way, Elijah Robinson is speaking today. I think is it 12:30, Luke? Do you remember?
I can double check that.
Don't worry about it. It's around there, but we'll have that on texags.com. Luke?
David in the Pacific Northwest says you can't win the offseason, but you can absolutely lose it.
I like that. I like that. I think you can win the offseason, right? But you're exactly right. You can lose it. But winning the offseason, does it really matter until you win games? I thought the Petrino hire was a really good hire a year ago, and it felt like they were winning the offseason. I thought, all right, year 2, maybe with Durkin will be better, and it was better. Hopefully year 2 with Adagio will be better. And some of it worked, and some of it did not, all right? You can win the offseason based on the timeline. I'm using a little Marvel, the multiverse. Had it gone a certain direction, it was going to keep going south. Right now, it's going in a better direction, and you can certainly add to it. Luke?
Yeah, Nate in Fort Worth has probably my favorite text message that's come in so far. He says, for the first time, I care more about the effort and discipline than the Jimmies and Joes. Don't care about the names on the back right now. Just excited that we're going to have a blue-collar culture again.
Yeah, that is certainly part of the conversation. The other part that I think, again, I'm going to go back to the Trey Jones edition. I don't know the young man. I just heard his defensive coordinator kind of speak up on his behalf. But when you bring in a guy that has played a lot of college football, a guy that probably was not highly recruited, but he was right now in this portal window, right? A guy that is your team captain, that's the kind of dudes you want in your locker room. You want Torian Yorks. You want Anaya Smith. You want Trey Jones. You want those kind of guys in your locker room to not only change, but establish a level of excellence and expectations and the way they go about their work. And it starts with Mike Elko. It continues through with Tommy Moffitt and the rest of the assistants. But getting guys that can strengthen your voice, your message, a locker room that leads from within is a locker room that can win. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, let's get the latest on National Signing Day, where we're trending. I know that there's people worried about tomorrow. We'll see how worried or excited Jason Howell is about it. We've got Howell coming up. After that, John Pugliese at the end of the show, so I don't know why I said after that. After that, Joni Taylor. They keep winning. What is it, 8 straight? 9 straight?
8 straight.
8 straight. I like that. I like when they win. We'll get into that and more. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Oh, it's the Little oasis for you, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I asked a question earlier in the show, what would be a successful offseason? My buddy Philip sends in, since OB isn't there, I'll say this. The Aggies want to see a Fargo's type of offseason. OB might be down a trail about wanting a lot of quality meat around him. I probably shouldn't have read that whole text. But yeah, let's get some guys on the offensive line. Let's get some dudes in the trenches, right? Some big, strong dudes. Let's do it. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. We're joined by Jason Howell. Jason, this team through the Jimbo era did a really nice job recruiting the trenches. Are we trending in that direction in the Elko ways?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Looking at this class, the way it's coming together, at least on Wednesday, I would say the offensive line is probably the strength of your class of what you signed. So you've got Papa Fua, Ashton Funk, Blake Ivy, all, big-time prospects, versatile. Afua and Ivy can both play guard and tackle. Funk, to me, we love him at TexAgs. I don't know what some of these other guys are seeing. We've talked about it. We think he's greatly underrated, but he brings everything you need in terms of a tackle type prospect. And, all these guys are pretty – workmanlike. I've heard you've been talking about the blue-collar attitude that Elko seems to bring, and these guys fit that bill.
We're talking to Jason Howell here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, so tomorrow, are we expecting still a small number class? And I guess that's all relative, right? Because what was it that Billy said yesterday? I think 8 in Jimbo's first recruiting class. So are we trending in that direction or maybe in the teens?
I think you could hit the low teens right now. We've got, I think, 9 that we feel really good about signing. And then you've got 1 on Friday, Tristan Jernigan that you're watching. You got Alabama you're fighting off there. But latest is, you could, it sounds like A&M's done a good job of warding that off after especially coming off his official visit over the weekend. Dalen Evans has talked about waiting and signing in February. Still keeping a close eye on that one. If there's one of those guys out of Dominic McKinley and Terry Bussey and Evans who've said that, he's the one I feel like A&M could bring back into the boat and get to ink on the dotted line. So you get those guys and you're looking at 11 early, and you got to keep an eye on those 3 Tampa prospects out of Carrollwood Day that were on campus this last weekend. Anthony Carey, running back. You got a receiver, Isaiah Williams, that's committed to Florida, and Solomon Williams. So you could see 14 if everything falls the way it could. Maybe even a couple more here and there if a few surprises fall A&M's way. But I would say anywhere from that, I would expect about 11 when it's all said and done.
Jason, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like every year for the last few years, there's been a surprise. Like, maybe you guys expected, but the public did not expect. Could there be some surprises tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. There could be. It may not be Jimbo, but that when you have a transition group, when you have a new coach come in, you've got some guys they may be talking to behind the scenes that they haven't voiced it out there, you could see a flip or two, or you could see maybe a new name, especially early on, that they were able to work behind the scenes a little bit, and you've got Elko and the Duke crew out there with some connections. I think that helped play a part in the Tampa trio making their way to campus over the weekend. And then, who knows what some of these other guys like Coach Klein have, out there or Coach Spencer that may be able to make a late play on somebody.
Let's talk about some of those guys that will possibly not sign tomorrow. You mentioned them a moment ago, but Terry Bussey, do you still feel like A&M is in the right position for him?
Yeah, I think this is one that he really wants to build those relationships. That's been a huge part of his recruitment, and he's seeing a lot of changeover. A lot of the guys, he had a great relationship with Coach Rushing. He's no longer there. They really liked what was going on with Coach Petrino, and the thoughts of being part of that offense. But yeah, so it's about repairing those bonds. I think they really like what A&M brings to the table as a university. I think he's he's talking about making it back to A&M in January, and that's all you can ask for is a chance. And he's listening. He likes the 12th man. He likes the environment, and feels very comfortable in College Station. I think those are all big things when it comes to his recruitment, and I feel like A&M is going to be in a good spot there, building those bonds. But LSU definitely, the main competition right now. They had Kerry Cooks at the game on Wednesday night, and USC, Alabama are coming on strong. Don't count out Texas and Oklahoma, but I think A&M is the prediction at this point. It's going to be close. It's going to take some work, but yeah, I like where they sit.
Don McKinley's one that when I listen to you, Bronny, and Billy, I don't know how I feel there, and I don't know if he knows how he feels. Right, that's part of the reason that is dragging out a little bit.
Yeah, he's well. First off, Dom is he's kind of a quiet guy, and he's pretty reserved, and he had really good bonds with Coach Robinson, and that was a big factor for him. And I think with that departure, it's made him think a little bit. Tennessee, LSU, Syracuse, Texas, Oklahoma, all very much in the mix. They've all been in home, in addition to Texas A&M. His mom did tell me that he's not signing on Wednesday. It was basically how it was put to me. And I don't think he's going to be signing early. But right now, if I had to guess, I would think, A&M still got some work to do there. And like with Terry, I think it comes down to the relationship piece, and him getting to know Coach Spencer and Coach Elko, and some of those guys. A&M does have a good in there with TJE has been pretty instrumental there and been on him throughout the last month, and you've got Mason Smith as well that has been working on him behind the scenes there in the recruiting department.
Jason, going back to the Tampa trio, do you feel like that is a bulk deal, like it's a package deal? You got to get all three? Is it 2/3 or going together? All three could go separate ways. How do you kind of read that?
Well, I think I don't think there's any package deals these days. Everybody needs to do what's best for them. I think A&M provides a good landing spot for all three. My latest intel is, A&M seems to be in a good spot for all three. That doesn't mean they land every single one of them. Isaiah Williams in Florida. Florida's doing everything they can to fend off the Aggies. Anthony Carey. You got Georgia Tech, South Carolina, former Michigan State commit, and Solomon. I know A&M was very high on his list, before the coaching change, and it doesn't seem like that's changed a whole lot either. The message Coach Elko has had has definitely resonated well with him. So I think they're in a good spot. But I wouldn't say if they get one, they get all of them, or it's they're definitely all going to play together. I think they're all going to make their own decisions, and but I individually, I think A&M, makes a strong case.
We expect to hear from Oregon State cornerback Jermod McCoy later on today. It's between A&M and Tennessee, apparently. How are we feeling on this particular one?
Well, as of late last night, it sounded like A&M was coming back. I know during the day it looked like Tennessee had maybe nudged to the front there, but yeah, A&M's making another push, and it sounds like they got a pretty good shot coming in. To the decision. I think that's today, so we'll see what happens there.
That would be a huge one for A&M
Yeah.
to get. That's certainly one of their needs. Another one, Fresno State tight end Trey Watson, who's got relationships already on campus, right?
Yeah, they made no secret. Him and Jalen Henderson pretty good friends, and that you saw last night after he got that offer, Jalen was already in his ear. Come on, the moves. So we'll see what happens there. Big tight end, big target, versatile, brings a lot to the table, and would definitely be a big addition. A&M's going to have some competition there. I know he's picked up a few other offers. I think Houston and Washington were a few that I saw, but yeah, he's definitely someone on the table. And I'd throw out Garrett Miller, another one. I wouldn't sleep on that one. He's the Purdue tight end that came in on Sunday from Round Rock. I could see a way that possibly one or both of those guys end up at A&M.
That'd be huge. Talking to Jason Howell here on TexAgs Radio. All right, this is one that caught my attention. Malachi Nelson in the portal.
Mm-hmm.
He was recruited heavily by Texas A&M, ended up choosing USC. For some reason, he doesn't feel a part of their future. But you're not so sure that A&M is in the mix for a transfer quarterback, right?
I think right now it's looking like Wigman, and that's about they're sticking with Wigman, and the guy's already in the fold at A&M. You got Jalen, you got Marcel, you're bringing in Miles O'Neal, and I think outside of a potential high school addition, you're standing pat. I don't see them jumping in, at least not right now, for a transfer portal guy.
Obviously, I know that Bronny's beat is the Houston area, and Lagway is a name that we heard a lot last week, but it seems like he silenced that. Is that maybe one just to still maybe potentially keep an eye on?
I mean, you keep an eye on it until the ink is dry, but it sure seems like that momentum's faded a little bit. Through the weekend, him getting back to Gainesville, it sounds like Florida's done a lot to calm those waters. So we're still keeping an eye on it. Bronny's leading the way there. If there's any change, I'm sure he'll be right on top of it. But right now, I'd kind of put him as a bit of a long shot.
Keeping it with the portal here, how about Brandon Johnson from Duke? Relationships, obviously, with Coach Elko, and a guy who's going to be highly coveted.
Yeah, and I think with those connections, A&M's going to have a pretty good shot. I'll be honest, I haven't really dug too much into that one just yet. But if that's it sounds like that could be a two-way street with that interest, and you would expect A&M to be right there in the mix.
How difficult is it for you and Bronny and for Billy to kind of assess things in today's world of recruiting? Because the portal's like its own animal. Signing day, it's its own animal, but it's split up, and then you've got coaching changes and all. Like, it's just, is it difficult, not for you to do the research and find out, but just like the assessment part of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, what do you consider a win on signing day? Well, if you bring in some really awesome portal additions, and I really like what they've done so far, it does not devalue, but they complement each other in a way that you didn't have before. It's another avenue to bring in top talent, and it makes it a little different because you're going, okay, do we want this safety out of Killeen High School, or do we want this guy that's got 2 years experience in the Sun Belt, or and can come right in, and we've seen another level of competition. So it's definitely different and changed the way things are, and you see Mike Elko's staff take a much more aggressive stance in the portal, and I like it personally. I think, if it's there, go for it. Why not? Field it out and get in there and get your hands dirty and try and make the best roster you can possible. And I do think you have to have a mix. You want to have a healthy mix there, high school, regular recruiting and portal. But it's always, when there's top talents available, you want to bring in the best you can. And there's a lot of great talent in both.
A name that was kind of hot on the boards last night was Ashton Bethel Roman. I don't know how much detail you can go into on this, but this is a guy that's been a commit to Arkansas for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, he slipped in under the radar this weekend. And, he's a guy that's played DB, receiver, and just a tremendous athlete. I want to say his dad is a former NFL, guy, and his mom was Olympian or something like that, something crazy. But, he brings a tremendous amount of athleticism to the table. Last I heard, it sounded like Arkansas felt pretty good about their chances to keep him in the fold, and maybe momentum was trending back that way. But he's definitely one to keep an eye out. One of those guys that could, pop up on signing day.
Jason, last thing for you. Tomorrow is going to be a benchmark for the offseason, but if it's too high or too low, there's still work to be done, especially come February.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say A&M right now, you're looking at two of your biggest targets, most likely not, still being on the table come February. And I got a feeling you're going to see them reassess and see what's out there in that late period and maybe pursue a few new targets. So, I definitely agree. This is, it's a moving target right now, and that's in the portal and, with the high school and junior college recruits. So I wouldn't get too high or too low based on what happens tomorrow.
Awesome, Jason, man. Thanks so much. We'll catch up with you hopefully tomorrow, and, of course, everything on TexAgs.com premium boards.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, man. Jay Howell there, breaking it down. All right, let's hit a break. We'll come back with around SEC news out there with Luke Evangelist. Right now, we're talking Brazos Running Company. They're located at Century Square. They are Aggie-owned, they are Aggie-operated, and they are a specialty running store with an outstanding selection of running gear and shoes. Great brands like Brooks, On, and Hoka. So if you're into fitness, and I know many of you are, the right shoe makes all the difference in the world. So you want to make sure you go to Brazos Running Company. They're going to help you find the right shoe. They're very passionate about the shoes. They'll put you through, not necessarily tests, but, through an evaluation to make sure you find the right shoe dependent on your gait, the way you run, the way you do your fitness. They got great brands to highlight as well. Birkenstock, big time there. Viore, I got a shirt from Viore the other day from Brazos Running Company. Awesome. And with, Christmas and holidays right around the corner, literally right around the corner, that's a great place to go to get some of your shopping needs done. Located at Century Square below the Star Cinema Grill in College Station, it is the Brazos Running Company. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. We're going to get to around SEC here in a moment, but I want to read this. This came from Mr. Seabass on X. Morning, David. What are the odds of starting Henderson at quarterback, QB1 next season, considering he played well, he's healthy, and show that he can run and pass the ball? With the bowl game decide his future? Thanks. No, I think your QB1 is Connor Wigman. I love Jalen. I do. And I think that kid's got a future. And but I think Connor Wigman's not losing his starting position because of an injury. He was fantastic. He was being mentioned as a guy that could slide into the Heisman race. And with the new offense next year, I think they're going to tailor it to what he does really, really well. I think Jalen Henderson is a guy that showed a lot of promise, and his bowl game is going to go a long way. But no, if you're asking my opinion, you've got Connor Wigman. That is your quarterback. And I don't think I'm in the minority there. I think I'm in the majority. Let's go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Luke Evangelist has got some SEC notes from overnight.
Yeah, before we get into that, I want to highlight some stuff that was said on the YouTube page going off of this theme about what would be a successful offseason for you. So some of the things that were said were no season-ending injuries, and also winning the offseason would mean players buying into the wrecking crew mentality. So I would agree with both of those. And now, David, I'm going to get into some stuff that's been going on around the SEC. Five-star quarterback Dylan Raiola flipped his commitment from Georgia to Nebraska. That seemed to be the big news on Twitter yesterday.
I remember that started, I guess people started thinking it could happen late last week, and people were shocked. You go from Georgia, a national championship contender every year, to Nebraska, who's been, if A&M has underperformed, Nebraska has certainly underperformed a lot longer.
Yeah, I completely agree. He was previously committed to Ohio State before he was with Georgia. He's a five-star. He's the first five-star QB to commit to Nebraska in the modern era of college football. He's currently playing for his third high school in 4 years and has committed to 3 different colleges over the last year, which brings me to a question I have for you, David.
Yes, sir.
As a Nebraska fan, if you were one, would you be concerned if your incoming generational quarterback has proven that he can't stay put at the same place for more than a year?
Yes and no. Nuñoism there for you, Nick. Here's my yes. There are certain names I'm not going to even mention, right? But there are certain names that you just know this dude's probably going to transfer. It could be guys who went to A&M who go to A&M. It could be guys that are at Florida, right? You just know a transfer is going to happen, right? But I think it depends on where your program is. If you are Nebraska, you care, but you don't care. Another one. The reason you don't care is you're not in a position, you just want to, if you get a guy at that caliber, a 5-star, and you can win with him early on, it changes the perception. So yeah, I am absolutely if I'm a Nebraska fan and my eyes are man, this guy keeps changing his mind every 5 minutes. 3 high schools, in the youth sports world, right? I don't care what sport it is, soccer, baseball. When there's families that go from club to club or team to team, you go from 12 to another one, and you're constantly changing. It is I don't know if I want that dude around, right? That happens. But when you're Nebraska and you have underperformed and you have been at the bottom of the bottom for so long and not reached your level, and you're trying to change the perception of the program where it is right now, you'll deal with it, right? There are players that have come to Texas A&M over the last few years that you're man, I don't think this dude's going to stick it out. There's something about him. He's changed this, he's done that. But you still take the gamble. You take it because you expect to. It's like Antonio Brown a couple years ago, before he became too much of a problem. Not saying that these kids changing minds are the kind of distraction that Antonio Brown was. Please don't. But sometimes you think you could be the culture and the team to keep them on the right track and to keep them from transferring, right? So you take that chance when you're Nebraska. If you are Georgia, if you're Ohio State, then you're I don't know. Luke?
So to add context to a lot of people being confused why he is at Nebraska, his dad was a legendary offensive lineman for them, and he's currently the nephew of the offensive line coach. So that should give you some context. And
that would make me feel a little bit better too, right?
Yeah, that probably better that he would stay longer. So I've truly never seen a commit announce their a commitment in this way. Normally you get a graphic, but Dylan released a poem I'm not sure if he wrote it or if someone at Nebraska
hold
wrote
on.
it.
Is this a real? Are you?
No, I swear.
Are you doing a Luke? Or
no, I'm looking right
it's
at his
real.
Twitter.
It's
real.
It's pretty bad.
He wrote a poem
it's corny,
or a rap?
Yeah. It's a poem. I'm going to read the first couple lines for you, maybe the whole thing. We'll see how long you last. He said, in the realm of college dreams where purpose takes flight, enter Dylan Raiola crafting his narrative in the night. Once lured by Georgia where powerhouse glory gleamed, yet Nebraska's purpose in his heart brightly beamed. In the scarlet and cream where legacies entwine, Dylan, like Rogers, Rozier, and Crouch, a hero in line. No longer a cog in some powerhouse machine, but a quarterback with an even grander ambition unseen.
David, can you do the rest of the show referring to yourself as David Nuño? Third person, please. Also, you know who this guy reminds me of? Luke, you mentioned, he's been committed to 3 different schools, and he's a 5-star quarterback, all this good stuff. It kind of screams Tate Martell to me.
Oh, yeah. Bro. Good one, Nick. Look, I don't know this young man. I hate doing the quick judgy thing, right? I do. And this might be a great guy, right? Like some dudes are into poems, I guess. I'm not. Never. Have you ever read a book of poems?
I mean, yeah, probably in like middle school.
Like on your own or because you were forced to?
Oh, I was forced to.
Okay. Nick?
Yeah, same deal.
Yeah. But whatever. Like you're into, right? Like it is what it is. So I'm not going to do the judgy of a young man. Like I just think we're in a different culture, guys, where like it's about likes and tweets and about me and talking about me and third person. I think the jumping around from high schools and jumping around like I'm committed to this school. Look, if his heart was always Nebraska and he ended up going there because you know what, it's important to my family, I can get down with that. A poem, I don't know. Would we feel different if it was a rap?
I don't know how I would feel. I think it's different. I just thought it came off a little bit corny.
Yeah, it came off corny, but if he balls out, I think there's certain flags that pop up that make me think, I just don't know if I want this dude. But again, it depends where your program is. If your program is winning, you could be a little more selective. If your program is not winning and a 5-star wants to, come on, let's go. We'll deal with the aftermath later. What else, Luke?
Yeah, so another reason why he may have decided to flip his commitment is because current starting quarterback at Georgia, Carson Beck, announced that he will be returning for 2024. And Ole Miss backup quarterback Spencer Sanders is officially out of eligibility. He's been playing college football for what seems like forever, so he will not be able to play in the Peach Bowl if something were to happen to Jackson Dart. Ole Miss wide receiver Larry Simmons entered the transfer portal, and we have another SEC to SEC quarterback transfer. Former Vanderbilt starting quarterback A.J. Swan committed to LSU yesterday, so it looks like there'll be a competition between him and Nussmeier in the spring.
I wonder if that makes Nussmeier be like, dude, like, you guys keep like passing on me. Let me do my thing. I don't know. AJ Swan, I think you got to give him some props for what he did at Vandy, even though they haven't won. But it'd be interesting to see what he can do with that offense if he ends up being the guy. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with another open segment. I want to talk a little Lincoln Riley for a minute and just show you how narrow the margins are when we come back here on TexAgs Radio. Right now, we're talking about the Association of Former Students. I know many of you who are listening want to live here in the, what do they call this? Not the mothership. That's what we call Brian Broadcasting. I don't know. The mecca of, I don't know, if you listen to the show, you know what
the motherland?
The motherland. Yeah, sometimes I forget English. I just learned it recently. This is the motherland. You want to live here. I know you do because I've talked to many of you like, man, that must be awesome. You got to move. You can move back if you get the right job, guys, and the association is hiring people. The Association of Former Students seeking to hire professionals to move to this area. Or if you're already in this area, hey, upgrade your lifestyle, right? Go work at the Association of Former Students, the premier alumni association supporting that Aggie network. No doubt about it, they play a part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here. Don't miss opportunities to help out the association with Howdy socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, loyalty, leadership, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. If you're interested in joining a team or sharing with someone who would be a great fit, Please visit tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is time for Coffee Talk presented by TexAgs Coffee. Beat the hell out of morning by going to texags.com/coffee. I want to read this text that came in from Wixon Ag. Easy on the Heisman talk, talking about Connor Wigman. He was a step up from Johnson, but has not performed at a top 10 quarterback level. Love him, but let's see him play a season first. All right, Nick, play a game with me, or just answer some questions. Did I say he was going to win a Heisman?
No.
Okay. What I said was
fumbling there.
It's all good. What I said was there were some people out there that said he was playing at a Heisman level, and I believe one of those was Jordan Rodgers. After the third week of the season, when did he get hurt? Maybe it was right around there.
It was the Auburn game.
Auburn game, yeah. So they were saying that he was playing at that level. So while I don't know how to predict Heismans. Nobody does, but he was playing at an elite level. You don't want to call it a top 10 level? Okay. There were some people who thought he was. So you can have your opinion. They can have theirs. I'm just saying he was playing at a high enough level as a elite 5-star. Yeah, he needs to stay healthy. Yes, he needs to play a full season. That's Captain Obvious. Yes, Wixon. But if you're not intrigued by what more than intrigued. If you don't think he's QB1 after what you saw last year, then Okay, then you've got a different eye than I do. He's your starting quarterback. Done. Nick, are you going to argue with me on that?
100%. No, I'm looking at his numbers right now. I mean, threw for 5 touchdowns against New Mexico. Again, cupcake, so that should happen. Threw for over 300 against Miami. Did have some turnover problems, though. Looked good against ULM. Threw for over 300. Got hurt in the Auburn game. And if we go back to the LSU game, which I think is the game that caught everyone's attention, he threw for 155, 2 touchdowns, ran for 21 yards, but, I mean, led the team to an upset over number 5 LSU at the time. So I think it's fair to say if he, strings together some games, he could very well be in the Heisman talk.
Look, he might be, but there was articles. I did a Google search in the offseason that there were some people saying if his numbers extrapolate over a full season, he'll be in the conversation. You got to win. I know. I'm not saying he's a Heisman contender right now. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that dude's got elite skills, and put him in the right offense with a team that wins, he'll be in the conversation. Will he get invited to New York? I don't know. Do you? Anyway, I wanted to talk about, and this kind of ties in with what I wanted to talk about, because when you look at the thin margins in winning, there was a constant theme on this show over the last couple of years. If A&M does this, if they don't make this mistake, they win that game. This play right here, if they can just make this play, get this first down. But the more I think about that theme, that conversation piece we've had since 21 season, man, if they don't make that mistake in Ole Miss, they win that game, man. If they don't do this against that team, if they just played a better fourth quarter against LSU, if. You know who says that? Teams that don't win. I'm going to read you a quote from Lincoln Riley, talking about the drop-off from what they were in 22 to 23. The reality is 2 teams that weren't that much different. I think we had some struggles and some things last year. We had some major holes. You could take 3 or 4 plays from the whole season, and I can show you a 10-win team. Buddy, does that not sound like what we've been talking about on this show forever? Right? It still wouldn't change that things would have gotten better for us, that we had to be at the level we wanted to be. Bad teams say that. Bad teams have chances to win games. Not every bad team gets blown up by 30 every time they play a game. Bad teams come up with excuses. And by the way, I was one of those, if we make this play. But when it's consistent, that's who you are. I'm not saying that that's who USC is going to be this year. Now all of a sudden they're putting a premium on defense. I'm just saying that's who the A&M storyline the last 3 years sounds like that Lincoln Riley quote. A few plays different. 2 plays go different in the Miami game, they win that game. 1 play goes different in the App State game, they win that game. How many times have we said that? That's what teams that don't win consistently say. Right? And that's the difference between a 9-3 team and a 10-2 team. That's the difference between a 5-7 team and a team that should have gone 9-3 or 8-4. Bad teams are a play or 2 away all the time. You don't just lose by 50 every time you play. Bad teams find ways to either not make the play or to gift a play, to give up a special teams touchdown, to not score in the red zone, to get a holding call on a touchdown play, and then now you're back further, to have a dumb turnover. Man, if we don't have that turnover, we win that game. That's what bad teams do. Good teams don't do that. Teams that get to a New Year's Six Bowl don't make that mistakes. And yeah, you got to be lucky. A&M's been very unlucky the last couple of years. A&M has also put themselves in some bad spots. So when I hear Lincoln Riley talk about that, you can substitute A&M, you can substitute Nebraska, you can substitute a lot of teams. I am sure, I haven't listened to any LSU radio, and yeah, they had the Heisman winner, but I'm sure that they're thinking to themselves, if we would have done this at this game, we win that game. Conversely, you don't make that play in Missouri, you don't win that game. That's what teams that don't win say. Teams that win, you kind of feel like they're going to make the play to win, right? You kind of just know, you remember, and I know many of you do, during the Johnny days, you just thought they were going to come back and win. Even some of the games that they didn't, you just felt like, oh, this is us. You had a little BAS at the time. I get it. But you're like, there was something about Johnny. You're like, all right, we're going to find ways to make the plays to win this game. Conversely to where we've been the last couple of years, you're going to find ways to give up this game. You never felt the lead was that comfortable. But they did just enough to make you feel like, man, they might win this game. The Ole Miss game. They should be down 21. They come back and make it a game. Right? And then they don't make the plays to win the game. That is what bad teams do. And hopefully the culture change, the X's and O's, the philosophy, some of the things that fell below the cracks aren't going to happen anymore. So Lincoln Riley 2 years ago was like the guy, like, oh, this is the coach to get, USC. And he might still be a really good coach, right? But winning teams don't make the mistakes that they made really the last couple years. They don't. They just don't. Let's go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. What other text do we have there, Luke Evangelist?
I will get you some text messages. Ron and Irving, going back to the Nebraska quarterback situation and the transferring of high schools, wants to know if you think that's more on the kids or on the parents.
Parents. But, okay. I think parents are absolutely, I have a level of expectation for my children and a level of class that I expect. And I want their word to mean something. That does not mean you can't change your mind, right? But if like my son commits to somewhere, if my kids are blessed enough to play at a high level, I'm not saying they can't change their mind, because there are scenarios like there's no absolute in this conversation, right? But when you are like, if I keep changing every year, like we see it in club soccer all the time. There are certain players that like they're not playing enough, they move to this club. Or they don't like the politics at this club, they move to this one. When it's that is a parental thing. But we do live in a world, and I'm not saying that this is the case for Raiola, because I don't know the kid. Like, I hate having a hot sports take about one person that I don't know, right? Like, I just see a little bit of what's written about him, and you try to make an assessment based on that. But we do live in a world that a lot of these kids enter the portal or transfer or think about transferring because they like the attention. They like being courted by the other schools. They like this fan bases telling them how great they are. It feels good, right? Like they get that boosted cortisol level, whatever they call it, right? Like there is that. They feel so much better about it. That is not a decision to make a change. That's absolutely not. I better hit a break because we got Joni Taylor coming up here on TexAgs Radio. Let's do that. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Joni Taylor on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk a little Aggie women's basketball. They won 95-45 yesterday over Mississippi Valley State. They've won 8 games in a row. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline, where we are joined by Joni Taylor here on the program. Joni, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. I guess I want to start off with this streak that you're on. What is the most consistent thing you are seeing from your team that is apparent, maybe that we didn't see last year?
Well, I think it's hard to compare the two just because we're such a different team. We have such a different roster. There's such a different understanding. So I think it's hard to compare differences from this year and last year because I think the answer is the roster. But just what I would say from consistency with this team, as we have started game one up until this point, we're getting better defensively, which is the core of who we are. We are in the top 1, 2, 3 in the SEC and top 10 in the nation in a lot of defensive categories, and that is our anchor. That's what we hang our hat on. And then offensively, we are getting to a point where we're starting to get comfortable with rotations. We play a ton of different people at different spots, different positions, and we're starting to get more comfortable there. We're continuing to share the basketball. We had 22 assists last night, and then we continue to ramp up our consistency in rebounding the basketball at a high level. You know, when we go rebound, it's fun to watch offensively and defensively, and so we're continuing to dominate on the board.
Even though yesterday specifically you were up big at the half, you were not a fan of the pace of the game. What did you not like about it, and then what changed?
Oh, we were playing too slow. I thought that Mississippi Valley State did a good job of mixing up their defense. They were 3-2 zone. They were man. They were 2-3 zone. And even though we talked about not letting what they're doing defensively dictate how we play offensively, we had a package of plays we wanted to run that we can run no matter what the defense presents itself to be, zone or man. I thought it did. I thought it slowed us down. We weren't aggressive. We got lulled to sleep a little bit, and so we just had that little reminder at halftime of what we needed to do and how we wanted to attack the zone or the man and how we wanted to push pace, and they listened and came out and made those corrections.
One of the things you talked about yesterday was having so many different options on your bench with conference play coming up. That allows you to play different style of game at times. Is that correct, Joni?
Absolutely. I mean, in my mind, we have a pressing team. We have a zone team. We have a fast-paced team. We have a team that we can play in the half court with. We have so many different options and weapons, you know, offensively and defensively. It gives you a chance to do different things and to be versatile, and it also makes you difficult to scout.
Talking to Joni Taylor here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. How about closing strong yesterday? As good of a game as it was, 36 points there in the fourth quarter. The first time a 30-point quarter since TCU in 2021. Just about finishing strong. I'm sure that is something that you all preach all the time.
Well, I think it's important, especially for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want to continue to get better as we get ready to approach the conference. We want to be playing at a high level offensively, and when we talk about putting 4 quarters together and not having any let-offs or drop-offs, I think the other thing that really was really great about last night is that, you know, after we, you know, I don't want to say use the word emptied our bench because our bench could be starting a lot of places. Once we subbed out and put different players in some cases players who were playing different positions. We had Sahara Jones at the 4. She doesn't play the 4, but we wanted to get her back in there for some more minutes because she sat for quite a bit after she went down and got hurt. There wasn't a drop-off in execution. There wasn't a drop-off in intensity. And sometimes that happens when the scoreboard looks the way it looks and you've got combinations in who normally don't play together or who don't get the same amount of playing time as other players. So I was really happy to see them continue to be intense and execute.
We talked defense earlier. Lauren Ware gets a lot of props for the double-doubles, but yesterday 6 blocks in the game. Just talk about that part of her performance.
You know what's really impressive that gets left out a lot about her block shots is that most of them she keeps in bounds. Like there's some that she likes to throw to the stands, but she blocks shots and keeps them in bounds. And so now we can turn that into an offensive advantage for us. I think that's what's impressive. Not only can you block it, blocking the shot is great. It gets the crowd excited, but when you can block shots and then save the ball and use that to ignite our offense, that's a special skill set. And she does that more times than not.
Joni, you got a couple more games at Reed before conference play begins. We've got Prairie View coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Just talk a little bit about that, like what you want to see down the stretch here before you get to 2024.
Yeah, quick turnaround. We have film as soon as I, hang up with you. We're going to go have film and practice and get ready for a 1 o'clock tip tomorrow. Let me say this before I forget. It is Fan Appreciation Day. It's free admission. So, Aggie Land, in between cooking for Christmas, shopping for last-minute gifts, take a break around 1 o'clock, come see us in action. We're fun to watch. What I'm looking for is attention to detail, is being disciplined on both sides of the basketball and making sure that we are putting ourselves in a position to finish out this year and head into conference play on a high note.
Well, you mentioned getting folks out there at 1 o'clock tomorrow. How much of a difference does it make, though, when they're out loud and you got kids there, you got parents, you got families, you got even students that are maybe in town, just being part of the atmosphere?
It changes everything. We have to be ready to create our own energy, but it's great when the 12th man does that for us. I think that we are putting a good product on the floor. Obviously, tomorrow is also a tacky Christmas sweater game, so we are wanting you to come and show up in your Christmas best. But it says so much. It sends a message to recruits. It sends a message to our opponents, and it also sends a message to our team that Aggie Land is behind us, and we've got a great, loyal fan base that comes and supports us. But obviously, we want to grow that as much as possible.
Joni, we appreciate it. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. We'll talk to you soon.
Same to you.
All right, Joni Taylor there on the Brian Foley Law Hotline. Appreciate her time here on the program. All right, so this is what the final hour of the program is going to look like. We've got Charean Williams. Usually joins us at 8:35. Today she had to change that, so we're going to get her here on the program at 10 o'clock. John Pugliese in studio. He used to live here before I moved here. I moved here, he moved away. It's all good. We'll get Pugliese in studio for a couple of segments. The final half hour of the program will be dedicated to some basketball talk as Aggie Hoops trying to get back on track after that loss to the University of Houston. Again, we have National Signing Day, our special tomorrow, 7 o'clock for the premium members on TexAgs.com. We will start that stream at that point. And then 8 o'clock, we're going to have, tomorrow, some of the guests that will be here in studio, Stephen McGee, Chris Taylor, we got Brandon Leone, of course, Billy Liucci with us for 3 hours, Ryan Broniger. I'll be a part of the show as well. So we'll have a busy one there for National Signing Day. Let's hit a break here. When we come back, we'll talk to Charean Williams, little Aggies in the NFL. We'll talk Cowboys. We'll talk Texans. We'll talk about it all next on TexAgs Radio. Welcome back into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Brian Foley Law Hotline. That's where we find Charean Williams, an Aggie great, a Hall of Famer, and a pro football talk enthusiast and writer, of course. Charean, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody.
Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you as well. So I like that. Great. You're in a good place. So tell me what's going on with your world. You seem very happy this morning.
I don't know. I'm working out. I shouldn't be that happy. I just got in here, so I got a long way to go in my workout. So I really shouldn't be happy. I should be happy when I'm at the end of the workout, not the beginning.
Well,
but it's Christmas week.
Yeah, there you go. It's Christmas week, and I know we weren't happy with the result in the Houston A&M basketball game, but were you able to catch any of the game? Any thoughts that kind of jump out at that one?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. Unfortunately, they fell behind, and then I was kind of, sort of, I have to admit, kind of writing them off, and all of a sudden they start coming back and coming back and coming back, and it was a great finish. Unfortunate that we didn't get it done right at the end, and I thought when we got the traveling call over there when he moved throwing the ball in, the Houston dude, I really thought we were going to win the game, especially the way that Wade was shooting the ball. I mean, it was just unbelievable the second half that he had. So an exciting game. I think it shows that what they're capable of, and when they get back to full strength and healthy, I think there's going to be a really, really good team in SEC play.
Talking to Charean Williams here on TexAgs Radio. So you think they are close? Are they close enough?
Yeah, I do. I certainly do. People are going to look at the record and go, they shouldn't have this thing a lot. But I think this is going to get them better for when it matters. Basketball isn't like football, fortunately. I hate college football in the fact that if you lose one game, especially early in the season, you feel like your season's over. Where in basketball, you lose a bunch of games. And I just, I feel like the way they've played and the way they played in most of these losses, that it's just going to have them ready to when the games do matter for the SEC tournament and then the NCAA tournament and all those things. So they're going to get into it, and you got to be playing your best then, not your best now. So they're figuring things out. They're getting healthy, hopefully, and they'll hopefully be healthy for the stretch run. And I just think they're going to be a really good team. I really do. I've seen enough from this team to go, especially the way Memphis played them on deep. That tells them what, some teams are going to do defensively against them in the really big games. So now they know how to handle that. They know what to do. They've seen it. So I think all those things are going to help. So yes, I'm encouraged, and I'm usually more of the Nelly negatives. They call me Patty Positive on the golf course because I'm always like, that's a terrible shot. I'm going to have a terrible score. But I really am encouraged and like what I see and hopeful for this basketball team.
Charean, with the way college sports are going and college football in particular, does it kind of does National Signing Day mean the same thing to you as it used to, or is it kind of like has the pizzazz gone? Yep.
Yeah, and people still get typed up about it, and I'm like, why? Most of these players who be playing somewhere else, you're basically just getting them ready. You sign them. You have them a year, you get them ready to go somewhere else. I mean, that's what it's turned into. And just wait until these Final Four teams are out of it. They're going to have players go into the portal as well. They're just waiting for that time when the season's over. So, it's the state of college football now. It's open free agency. It's open market. And again, I mean, I've said this, I don't know how many times on the show, but it's like the NFL. Like, I would prefer a guy who's played, who showed me what he could do rather than somebody coming in. I don't care how many stars he has. I mean, we've seen that from experience at A&M, all the 5 stars that are no longer there and, in fact, no longer with other colleges as well. I mean, it's got to be more than just the stars. And I just like the fact that some of these guys, when you get the experienced guys, you get the transfers out of the portal, you've seen what they can do. They've shown it, and you have evidence of what they can become. For a high school kid, I mean, it's a different level in high school. It's like going from college to the NFL. It's a different level. You have no idea how they're going to handle it. You have no idea how they're going to handle the money now. That's a completely different thing. So, yeah, I like the portal. I don't think that the signing day means much of anything. How many of these guys are going to step in for you and really contribute right away? A handful, not very many, and a lot of them are going to transfer. So, yeah, the hype for me isn't there anymore.
Talking to Charean Williams here on TexAgs Radio. So, Charean, at the beginning of the show, I asked what would a successful offseason, in your opinion, be. So I'm going to ask you the same question, but I want to give you a little bit of my thought process, because my thought process isn't really the right now. My thing is I take a macro look at it, like what life would have looked like if we didn't make a regime change, right? Like, so now we're starting on this new trajectory, and this is all part of a successful offseason. So I give you that framework. What about you? What do you think is a successful offseason for A&M?
Well, it's funny, and building off of what you said, I just had this thought yesterday. I said, I wonder what our recruiting class and some of that would have looked like if Jimbo would have stayed. I don't know that a lot of those guys still would have stayed. Some of those recruits that he had when we were up to number 2 or number 3, whatever it was, in the recruiting rankings, I still think a lot of those guys, based on the season we had, would have gone elsewhere. So I still think Miller probably would have gone to Colorado, and some other things would have happened like that. So, I like the start that he's on. I hope that a couple of these guys that we have in the portal, including Walter Nolan, end up coming back. I think that would be very successful. I think we could have a really good season next year with the guys we do have coming back. We get those couple of guys and a few more guys out of the transfer portal. You have a very experienced football team. That's going to be the good thing about it. And obviously the schedule is favorable. So, but it's getting, to me, a successful offseason would be getting those coaches right that you didn't have last year. The offensive line coach, obviously we have the offensive coordinator hired, the defensive coordinator, special teams coach. All those coaches have to be the right guys, the right fit, and make those things work. And so I'm really probably more concerned about the coaching and the coaching hires than I am about the players that get in. We need depth for sure, but I like a lot of, when you start looking at our starters and name the 22, I like a lot of the starters we have there right now.
Charean, by the way, it looks like Mike Elko just had a tweet not long ago talking about locking in another recruit. So I don't know who that is. Maybe it's a transfer portal guy. Jamar McCoy.
Like it.
Yeah, I like it too. I hope he ends up being one of the guys, if not that guy, one of the guys. They're playing the portal game this time around, and that part to me, you talked about it, building your team that way. But I like having a team that is going to be active in it, not relying on it solely, but certainly being active.
Yeah. Well, it's just like the NFL. Just look at the NFL. You have to have some free agency. You have to use some of the free agency, and that's exactly what it is. It's free agency. And if you don't do that, and Jimbo was very resistant to doing that, then how are you going to fill your holes? You're going to fill them with true freshmen coming in again who haven't played, who you don't want to rely on too many true freshmen. You just don't. And when you get to that point that you are, I just don't think you're going to be a very good football team. You want that experience. You want guys who have played. So you have to use it in this day and age. Whether you want to or not, whether people like it or not. We're past that point. It's not even a discussion. Like, you have to use it. This is what college football has become. And it is like free agency in the NFL. And you do have to supplement. And even like the Cowboys traded for a couple guys. They have their core group of players. They traded for Brandon Cooks. They traded for Stephon Gilmore. And it made them better. And so you use the tools that you have to make your team better. And it's not always getting guys that you drafted, or in the case of college football, getting players in recruiting, high school players. So you have to use it. It is what it is. Like it or not, it's here, and it's here to stay.
Charean, the Seahawks again got the Eagles, and that's their third straight loss, I believe. What do you think is happening with Philadelphia right now?
Well, they're struggling. There's no question about that. Matt Patricia called the defense last night for the first time, and it didn't help with that 93-yard drive, 92-yard drive to close out the game. And they're struggling on both sides of the ball. I think they've had a lot of injuries, I think especially defensively. And then, Jalen Hurts is not playing very well right now. 17, I think it is turnovers that he has now. He threw it his 11th and 12th interceptions last night, so he's not protecting the football. When you don't have a really good defense and you're turning the ball over, I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster, and that's what we've seen with them over the last 3 games. Now, having said all that, people want to know, what are the chances for Cowboys to win the division? Well, right now they're tied. It's probably going to go down to the 5th tiebreaker. 90% of the 5th tiebreakers, which is record strength of victory, 90% of the scenarios favor the Eagles. So the Cowboys would sort of have to have, among other things, the Chargers would have to beat, I think, Kansas City and somebody else good. I mean, the scenarios certainly favor the Eagles if both teams went out. But I think even with the Eagles schedule as easy as it is, I don't, they could lose one of these next 3 games. There's no question about that. They're just not playing good enough right now to beat anybody. So they've got to play better if they want to win the division. But if both teams lose one game, it favors the Cowboys. So the Cowboys definitely need the Eagles to lose one game, and whether they win out or not, they should be sitting in pretty good shape, whether they lose one more or not. So, but they got 2 obviously really hard games coming up. Cowboys do at Miami and then Detroit at home, and the way they played on Sunday, again, you can't count on anything because those 2 teams run the football better even than the Bills had run the football this season before they faced the Cowboys and got 266 rushing yards against them. That was a long-winded answer to your question.
Help me understand the Cowboys, because they're a team that will blow you out one week and then get blown out by the next week. They'll lose a game to the Cardinals. They'll get destroyed by the 49ers. Like, I can't figure them out. I know they're good, but they're not always good.
Yeah, they're good at home. They're always good at home. They're not so good on the road. 3-4 now on the road. They don't play very well on grass. Buffalo is turf. But their other losses were all on grass. 49ers, Eagles, Cardinals are all grass fields. People say why. It slows down, especially their defense, slows down that pass rush a little bit on grass as opposed to turf. They're built for turf. They're fast, so they're built for turf. And so I think that's one of the problems with them. They missed Jonathan Hankins on Sunday in the middle of that defense. And, Mozzie Smith, the first-round draft pick, has not played up to his potential there, and he replaced Jonathan Hankins and didn't play well enough in helping stop the run. So what do I expect from them? I don't know. I think they end up getting the wild card. They'll go to New Orleans, Atlanta, Tampa. Probably now it looks more like Tampa and then maybe New Orleans. And obviously they beat Tampa last year in Tampa with Tom Brady, and they'd have Baker Mayfield this year. So I think they win that game. But again, it's on the road. Are they going to do that in a hostile environment in Tampa's grass and all those things? I don't think it's 100%, but I think they should win that game. And then guess what? You got to go back to San Francisco, and I don't think they have any prayer of winning that game. I think San Francisco is going to roll to this thing. I think they're going to, barring injury, I think they're going to be Super Bowl champions, and I don't think they're going to face much resistance from anybody. I just don't think there's anybody close to San Francisco right now. Not even close. Not even among the AFC teams. Now, maybe Baltimore with that defense. We're about to talk about Justin Matabuke. Maybe with that defense, they'd have a chance to slow down San Francisco. I just don't know if they can score enough points to beat them in a Super Bowl. But to me, that's the matchup we're looking at right now, is the 49ers and Ravens. I think those 2 teams are playing the best in the NFL right now.
All right, let's talk Texans before we do Aggies in the NFL. Case Keenum struggled most of that game, came up big on a big drive there at the end, and they were able to get a win against their former team, or excuse me, their former colors, or the city's former colors, better way to phrase it, because they are 2 different franchises. Just how about that Texans performance?
Yeah, I think you credit DeMeco Ryans for that. I kept calling for Davis Mills to come in because Case Keenum, to me, just was not very good. And he did get it done when it mattered most, and they found a way to win. And, again, a credit to DeMeco Ryans. He's going to be number 1 on my ballot for Coaches of the Year. You vote for 3 of them, and he's going to be number 1 for sure. We'll see if they can get C.J. Stroud back. I think that would be big for them. Obviously playing Miles and the Browns this week, that's going to be a big game and go a long way to determine one of those wild card berths. Whoever wins that game is going to be in much better shape, obviously, than the team that loses it. And so they need CJ back, but he's still in concussion protocol. So we'll see Wednesday whether he practices or not. If he practices Wednesday on a limited basis, I think he plays on Sunday. If he doesn't practice on Wednesday, I think that's a really bad sign. I don't know that he has enough time to get cleared and clear all the steps that are needed to get there. But yeah, the Texans are just they're really a fun team to watch. It's unfortunate some of the injuries that they've had, because I was really enjoying watching Tank Dell. He was another one, and some of those injuries have taken some of their players out. But Will Anderson didn't play on Sunday. But a heck of a job with all the injuries they had to beat the Titans, and Will Levis did it very well.
All right, let's go through the Aggies in the NFL. Where do you want to start?
Well, I got a couple. Braden Mann had a really nice night last night, despite the Eagles' problems. And they started on the 8-yard line on their final drive. Seattle did, because of Braden's punt. It was down there at the 8, and it then ended up with around a 50-some-odd yard average. So played really, really well. Myles Garrett again is getting held every single play. Didn't have the statistics, but I don't know. I reposted this week some of the holding penalties that have not been called, and he's been very outspoken. In fact, he got fined for being outspoken on some of the holding calls that haven't been called on him this year. Josh Reynolds had 2 catches for 41 yards. So those are the honorable mentions. Number 3, Mike Evans, 4 catches, 57 yards, a touchdown. Tampa Bay is playing really well. Baker Mayfield had the maximum passer rating, 158.3. On Sunday against the Packers, and they're playing pretty well. May get that Cowboys matchup in the first round. Number 2, Tyrell Dodson. I know he had the illegal hit on Dak Prescott. In fact, I was a little surprised he didn't get ejected from the game, but had a good game other than that. 8 tackles, half a sack, was all around the football all day against the Cowboys. Played awfully well. And then, as I alluded to, Justin Matabuke, what can you say about him? He's tied an NFL record. He's had at least a half a sack in 11 consecutive games. If he gets a sack this week, he will break, even a half sack, he will break the NFL record for consecutive games with a sack. He had a sack, 4 quarterback hits, a forced fumble on Sunday, and another guy is playing unbelievable now. He becomes a free agent in the offseason, and guess what? He's about to get paid. He probably will make the All-Pro team, I would think. I would imagine that he's going to be, it might be Aaron Donald and Justin Matabuke at defensive tackle this year, but he's going to get paid at the end of this year. He's just having an outstanding year.
Charean, great work as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Take care. Merry Christmas. Charean Williams there on the Brian Foley Law hotline, bringing it. By the way, good people can have a bad day. Call Brian Foley Law at 936-596-0407, serving Houston, the Woodlands, Conroe, and the Brazos Valley. All right, we're going to hit a break here. When we come back on TexAgs Radio, Nick's got a couple of questions to ask me, and I just want to find out, he wants me to give him some thoughts on the future of college football based on one coach's kind of thought process behind that. We'll get into that. I think I butchered that tease, Nick, but you know what you're going to talk about. I don't. It's next on TexAgs. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. A few minutes ago, Purdue tight end Garrett Miller, who was in the portal, announced that he's transferring to Texas A&M. That is the 6th Aggie transfer to come into Mike Elko. Props to Coach Elko and staff. He's from the Round Rock area, not Elko, Garrett Miller is, and last year he's played 33 games there at Purdue, 51 receptions, but last year he had 30 catches for 253 yards, a pair of touchdowns. The guy can block. Another big addition there for Texas A&M. Hopefully the first of a few over the next couple of days. We're hoping Jermod McCoy, the cornerback out of Oregon State, decides to go to Texas A&M as well. We're waiting on that one. He's expected to announce today between A&M and Tennessee. Let's go behind the glass and check in with Nick Savage. Nick, I know you heard some audio, which I have not heard yet, that Chip Kelly has got some thoughts about the future of college football, what they need to do.
Yeah, this was on Saturday, I believe, after their bowl game. And, he was just asked a question that I feel like probably every college coach is going to get asked after their bowl games, which if they're satisfied with the direction of college football with the transfer portal and whatnot. And we'll listen to the audio first, and then we can kind of dive into what he says. So here's Chip Kelly.
Right now would be realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and what would your plan maybe be to try to solve it?
I think they're all a problem, and I think we need to have a conference commissioner. I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power 5, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of 5. And we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia, Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams. You can play a 7-game schedule. You can play 4 against another division opponent, and you can always play against one Mountain West team every year so that we can still keep those rivalries going. Not that I've really thought about this. Not that I've a lot of spent time on this. But I think if you went together collectively as a group and said there's 132 teams and we all share the same TV contract, so that the Mountain West doesn't have one and the Sun Belt doesn't have another and SEC has one and they have another, that we all go together. That's a lot of games, and there's a lot of people in the TV world that would go through it. You can sponsor each one. Instead of calling it Group of 5 and Power 5, you can call it Amazon, Nike, bid that out to things. You do a lot of different things. But I think if we still do the same thing and take all that money, and I would do this, and I think this needs to be done, that money now needs to be shared with the student athletes, and there needs to be revenue sharing, and the players should get paid, and you can get rid of NLI, and the schools should be paying the players because the players are what the product is. And the fact that they don't get paid is really the biggest travesty. Not that I've thought of.
So that's what Chip Kelly had to say.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot. He
made
really
a lot of
dove
sense.
into it. Yeah, but I mean, things that stood out to me: college football commissioner.
Yes, we need one.
Football independent from other sports, and the players involved in revenue sharing. So, just what are your thoughts, takeaways from what he had to say there?
First off, I think there's a lot of really smart people that make things too complicated, right? And that's in any walk of life. But I'm pointing at you, NCAA. I'm pointing at you, the people who make decisions. Chip Kelly, in what, a minute 30 soundbite, figured it all out. And I don't know if that's the most winning formula out there. It sounds better than what we're doing now. It sounds like a winning formula. I like it. Everything he said, I'm on point with. Everything. It just made total sense to me. It makes too much sense for people to do it because people like to overcomplicate things. People like to make things difficult. It doesn't have to be that difficult, guys. Right there, a plan seems to work. As for a commissioner, yes. Absolutely, you should have a commissioner. I know a lot of you don't like Greg Sankey. Greg Sankey makes sense, okay? Many of you don't like him. I get it. They let Texas in. You feel like they stabbed you behind your back. This is the direction college football was going. But the fact that we can't get to point C, we're just stopping on point B, get to C already. Like, yes, get a commissioner, get somebody whose vision is aligned with all the presidents, and yeah, more of that, more of what Chip Kelly just said. So yes, I want a college football czar, if you will, and that's been talked about for years. This is not an original thought. The way he laid it out, though, to me, was good. As for independent of all the other sports, yes, I'm glad he brought up Notre Dame. If Notre Dame can do it, why can't we do it? Why can't just college football in general do it? There is no reason for the non-revenue sports to have to travel halfway across the country because football's doing it. Have a football conference or a football world, whatever you want to call it, and let everybody else go back to the way it used to be. Right? And I think if you did that, you're saving money, you're putting school first for the non-revenue sports, right? Like the school is still look, I'm in the minority. I know I don't think players need to get paid. I'm sorry, guys that come in studio. Like I'm glad that you get paid, but like a lot of the problems we have are because of this whole payment thing. Have a plan. Don't just be like, hey. Like don't. Players involved in revenue sharing, sure, right? Like it kind of goes against what I just said, but I feel like all these problems have been magnified since that point.
Well, with that, in my opinion, at least, that kind of, but now that I think about it, it really doesn't, unless there's a roadblock in place for schools to, prevent paying the players more than their allotted amount, right? Like, each player gets, $10,000, let's just say that, but, kid in the transfer portal, well, donor can offer up $10,000 more, and that's going to be the hardest thing I think to put a lid on is how do you stop the bidding wars?
Dude, we put a dude on the moon. Like this can't be that hard. You know what I'm saying? Like there are smart people in this world that can figure this out. I don't think over years. I feel like this could be over coffee. I think you can go to TexAgsCoffee.com. Like, if we ever open up a barista place and like, hey, I want some TexAgs coffee. And you go there. I think we could figure it out in a 45-minute meeting. And then you have to have a follow-up meeting. Like, it doesn't have to be that complicated, right? People do brain surgery. Like, that seems hard. Lasers through your eyes and not burn. Like, that seems hard to me. Figuring out college football? I mean, it's a process. I get it. It doesn't have to be that hard. It just puts 5 smart people in a room, right? Like, who are some of the smart people out there? You think if we got, I don't know, Elon Musk, who else? Maybe some people don't like him. Give me 5 people. Luke, Nick, give me 5 people that can figure this out in an afternoon.
Bill Gates.
Donald Trump. I'm just kidding. That would be just to be funny.
All right, Ola.
Let's see here. Yeah. Maybe OB. Put OB in that room.
OB can figure it out?
Yeah, put OB in there.
Okay, OB. You got Bill Gates. Who else?
Elon Musk, he said.
Yeah.
You know how, you guys are going to laugh because I'm
Stephen Hawking.
I'm Mr. MMA guy. Dana White can figure this out literally in an hour.
Yeah.
Nobody agrees with me. I felt some silence like I got to say yes to Nuño. I think Dana White could be one of those people. Anybody else?
I think for the 5th person, we should put Nick in that room.
No, that's not what I was thinking. I like Nick a lot.
I feel like I've laid out a pretty good plan before. Cade's not here to back me up, but Cade's heard my spiel.
I guess my point is we make it hard. Not we. People make it harder than it needs to be.
The powers that be.
The powers that be dumb. Okay?
They be tripping.
What else they be doing?
They be tripping?
Why don't you write a poem for us, Luke?
Okay.
Hey,
give me 3 minutes. I'll get back to you.
Okay. On the reels, I will. By the way, I don't know if I have to update my page or not. We have 81 likes on YouTube. I was told a rumor that if we get to 200 likes by the end of the show, Luke will do 200 push-ups on camera. However long that takes.
Do not like the video.
Whatever you do, like the video.
It'll be on the rewind, so do it.
Yeah. Well, can we do it?
The rewind is going to be 18 minutes long if that's the case.
How many could you do in the rewind, during the rewind?
In the intro, I could probably do like 20.
6. Like real ones on the table while we do it?
Why on the table?
So that people can see you.
No.
What?
All right, fine. If it gets 200 likes, then
if we
I'll
get
do
to
whatever.
200 likes, the YouTube rewind will have Luke Evangelist doing push. Only if he wants to. I don't want you to feel haste.
No, I'm going to do it.
Okay. Well, you're choosing to do it.
Yeah.
I just heard that rumor. When we come back, John Pugliese, I believe he might already be here in studio talking a little Aggie hoops, and hopefully we get to 200 likes. We're at 81 on my screen. My screen sometimes doesn't update. Get to 200 over the next 30 minutes. Luke is doing 200 push-ups. It may take a year, but we'll get it done. Next on TexAgs. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Got John Pugliese in studio, which is the first time we've actually met face-to-face. We've done lots of radio and TV together through Zoom. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, man. It's great to be back in Aggie land.
Well, I want to get into your story here in a little bit because you're visiting. We miss you around here, even though I didn't know you here, but I know your impact here. But we got to take care of some business first, all right? So are you familiar with Dylan Raiola?
I am.
All right, so apparently he had a poem that he put on Twitter. Was it yesterday or today, Luke?
Yesterday.
And I just 4 minutes ago challenged Luke to put a poem together quickly. And apparently he said he's got one ready to go. So, Luke, this could be the end of your broadcasting career, but take it away.
Yeah, if this goes well, I made it myself, and if not, then you can blame ChatGPT, but I will begin.
Did you use your help? Okay.
No, this is off the dome, David.
Okay.
In Aggieland's embrace where maroon dreams shine, TexAgs unfolds tales, a cherished design. David Nuño's voice, a symphony so grand, guides Aggies through triumphs across the land. Billy Liucci. We're not doing poems?
Wow, mid-sentence.
Wow.
Program director Dalton Hughes. Continue.
Billy Liucci, a shepherd with unwavering might, nurtures traditions in maroon's pure light. On airwaves, David's tales weave a song, a harmony of victories both fervent and strong. TexAgs, the digital haven so vast, where Aggies unite, their loyalty steadfast. In Aggieland's heart, where legends rise, David Nuño and Billy Liucci create eternal ties.
First off, that was like, it brought a tear to my eye. It was so good. It was fantastic. It was 26 minutes. It was like watching The Godfather. But it was really good, Luke.
Thank you.
You didn't have any help.
Not at all.
Wow.
I'm impressed.
That was good.
I'm impressed.
Pretty good. By the way, we're only at 104 likes on YouTube. I did make if we get to 200 by the end of the show, he's going to do 200 push-ups on the table after the show.
Hit
on
the button.
Rewind. So
hit it.
Let's get into Aggie basketball, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. So you're very about keeping it real. And sometimes when I think the ship is sinking, you give me some reality. When I think things are too good, you give me the other sense of reality. How close are the Aggies to being what we thought they'd be, and are they close enough?
I think it's going to be tough to get where we thought they would be because they lack a really big piece in Julius Marble that they were counting on, or that I, as a fan, was counting on. But Wade Taylor is that good, and combine him with Boots Radford, you've got two guys who feed off of each other incredibly well, that both complement each other, because the things that Boots does really well, those aren't Wade's strong points. And the things Boots does really well, those aren't Wade's strong points. So I think we're close, but I think this team is kind of what it is. The best thing that happened to them is they competed at a really high level against one of the top schedules in the country, and they're tested. Did they get over the hump with some of those games, right? They've lost 2 or 3 by 10 points. You know, the Memphis and the Houston games, that's 10 points combined. Those aren't bad losses. Now, does it look great in the rankings when you've got 4 losses on it? No, but that's okay because we're not playing for the right now. I think the one thing we know about Buzz's teams is they're going to compete, and at the end of the year, they're going to be in it. I don't think this year is going to be any different.
I was really impressed by one thing. There's a lot that impresses me about Wade, but one of the things that impressed me was you're taking on one of the best defenses in the country, if not the best. And he had struggled, yet when he just said, let me go hoop, he went out and he hooped, man. We had been missing some of that in a few of the games this year.
Not only was it impressive because of the way that, you know, he kind of got out of it and he just got after it, right? Especially the last 10, 12 minutes of the game. But he was doing it against arguably the top defensive coach in the country in Kelvin Sampson, with arguably the best on-ball defender in the country in Jamal Sheed. Those are realities. And so for Wade to do what he did, I said it last week on the show, he's going to prove to everybody that he's one of the top 3 point guards in the country. He did that. But a point guard in college basketball is a little bit different today than it used to be. Jamal Sheed is a throwback, right? He finishes with 12 points, whatever, 8 assists, a couple steals, and he's this calming influence. That's not Wade's game. Wade is dynamic. Wade is a volume shooter. Wade is going to go off when he goes off, and when he's not making it, he's still going to try and go off. And so I think what we saw is Wade's ability to take over a game. The problem is the guard play from A&M with Wade against Houston. You have Hefner, who only played 20 minutes, but he was 2 for 2. Jace Carter, who's figuring out what it's like to play at this level. University of Illinois Chicago is not this level, right? And then you have Obaseki, who just really hasn't come into his own yet. And those guys combined were 15 of 40 from the field. They took 23 threes combined and made 9 of them, which were, I think it was 2 from Hefner and the rest were from Wade. They had 48 points, but Houston's guards finished with 50 points. Right. So if you're not going to defend at that level that you need to, and you're just going to trade baskets, it's going to be tough because Henry Coleman, while he was great early, the lane is shrinking. There's not enough space for him to play. And they're just struggling to find that rhythm of other guys stepping up on a nightly basis, and that's why Boots is so important to this team.
John, while we agree that they are better than they were last year at this point, where are they in terms of when they started finding their stride last year? So, we're going to have to see the wins to follow, but are they mid-season SEC form last year? Because there aren't any Wofford losses on the schedule, right? This team has lost to some salty teams this year. Yeah. It's not good enough because we want them to be an Elite 8 team or better, but there are reasons that they haven't been able to reach those numbers.
Yeah, I think they miss, especially from the last couple of years, a few dynamic players. You talk about a guy like Dexter Dennis last year. Dexter Dennis filled a role. He was an athlete. He could defend. He was a 3-and-D guy. His stat, nothing jumped off the table, but he was an NBA athlete playing on this Aggie roster. Same thing the year before, Quentin Jackson, right? Quentin Jackson was an NBA athlete playing inside this Aggie roster that wasn't full of NBA athletes.
They don't have that this year.
They don't have that this year. So it's different. You've got Washington and Garcia, who I love. To me, combine them, they're the best 6-man in basketball. They do some really great things when they're on the court, but they don't shoot it. Quentin Jackson, Dexter Dennis, in that role, they shot it. Yeah. But these are guys with length, and these are guys with size who can defend multiple positions. I think it gives them a different set of skill than they've had before, but they don't have that perimeter NBA athlete that in the SEC you need to compete at the top most years. This SEC is a little bit different. It's probably the least regarded nationally at this time of the season that I can remember. There's only 3 teams in the top 25. But I think this A&M team is going to take a couple games, especially early in SEC play, to kind of get their groove. And I think you'll see a team that competes like you're used to. I think there's going to be a lot of really close games. So Wade Taylor and Boots, their shot-making ability is really going to have to rise and shine.
They're going to have to elevate their game.
Totally.
So what is the winning formula at this level for this team?
I think it's unique, unlike maybe what we see in college basketball today. Lots of threes, playing up and down with pace, all that stuff that we as fans really want to see. I don't think that's this team. I think Wade Taylor has to find his pockets in the game where he can push tempo and get easier baskets, because that's the thing that is really difficult for a guy like Wade at his size to get into a game that's really physical. Makes it hard. I think he proved a little bit against Houston that he could do it, especially against hard hedges and double teams and different things. But I think this A&M team needs to find a stride of being able to pick the pocket of pushing tempo. I also think they're going to need to pick up the pressure defensively a little bit. Buzz's teams have liked to slow the pace down in the past, and he used a lot of full court press back into his man-to-man. It's a little bit different man-to-man than a lot of teams play. They're going to have to find pockets to speed up the game. They're going to have to be better after timeouts, coming out of timeouts, after halftime to start the game. And they're going to have to figure out ways to get Wade off the ball. Boots has to be on the court for Wade to get off the ball. Chase Carr can't handle the point, not against SEC play. But I'd like to see more spread open, more space, which is very difficult when you don't have a bunch of three-point shooters. But I think they can push tempo at times, and I think they're also going to really need to be able to grind it out in SEC. SEC doesn't want to play a grinded out style. They want to get up and down. The guards in the SEC are really talented. So they're going to have to pick their spots and figure that out.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned how Wade needs Boots out there. He needs that running mate, but so does Henry. He needs somebody out there with him.
It's so interesting. If you look nationally, just look at two teams. Look at Kentucky, who is historically under Calipari struggled shooting the basketball, especially from three and with their bigs. And then a team like UConn, who's coming off a national title. Both of those coaching staffs went out and they found guys who could shoot the basketball. I mean, I think Kentucky's shooting close to 40% from three as a team. UConn's like 34%. This Aggie team's 28% from three. A&M doesn't get a lot of catch and shoot looks, primarily because the only guys who really should be catch and shoot the basketball are Hefner and Wade Taylor. There's not a lot of space for them to do that. So for this group, and for a guy like Henry Coleman, who really his game is 15 feet and in, there's not a lot of space when you got guys trying to dribble and get in the paint and get into the lane. He's got nobody else, and this is a problem for 3 years now. He's got nobody who can stretch the defense to play with a guy with him to open up the paint inside. And to me, that's where Henry Coleman's game has to continue to mature and be elevated. He's just not there. Doesn't mean that they can't figure it out. Unfortunately, Washington Garcia, they just don't shoot it well enough to really complement him the way I think we'd like to. It's going to have to be a little bit more physical. I think they've got to run more for Henry in the block, get him more easy baskets early. It can't just be off like offensive rebound putbacks, which is where he's getting the bulk of his points the last couple games. He's a great athlete, and he can really rebound the basketball. And I'd be shocked if he's not really good in SEC play, but he's going to have his hands full against teams who can really spread it out and who have guys who can shoot the three.
Set a break. We'll come back with more with John Pugliese here in studio. Right now, caller number 1, we're going to give you a free car wash from Aggie Athletics Express Car Wash in South College Station off of William D. Fitch in Greens Prairie. Aggie owned and operated with the friendliest staff and a personal touch. They offer a monthly membership. We'll give the first caller a free car wash right now from Aggie Athletics Express in South College Station. 979-693-1150. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. My big thanks to the Charge Apparel. Got this shirt from the Charge Apparel. A bunch of Aggies, good people out there. Go check them out. And we got John Pugliese here in studio. Luke, it looks like you are going to dodge a bullet. We are down to a few minutes left in the show. We are far away from the 200 likes. I think if it was Kay Nagley doing the push-ups, people would have done it. But for you, is Luke even there? Not even there.
Yo, Luke.
He was warming up.
Here.
Is that Nick doing
Yeah,
the
that
Luke?
was my impression.
That was pretty good. I kind of thought it was him for a minute. It was like a quick moment. All right, Pugliese, let's finish off here on Aggie basketball talk. So, if strategy session, they're down big 21 to U of H, all right? They're going to be down double digits to other teams. What does a coach think at that point? Kelvin said, he just said, hey, Wade, go do your thing. And that's what Buzz did. What did you see happening?
Yeah, push the tempo, get easy early shots to try and make a comeback. You can't have long possessions because then you won't have enough possessions in the game to make up that difference. I think they also really tightened things up defensively. I was really, as good as Wade Taylor was, I was really impressed with the defense in the second half, especially the last 12, 13 minutes.
But why not earlier?
Houston's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about one of the top 4 teams in the country, maybe even higher. And this is a Houston team that we talked last week hadn't really played a bunch of teams, right? They didn't have great competition leading up to this A&M game. So this was also an opportunity for them to show everybody, hey, like we're the real deal, right? We're Houston, the way Houston has been the last couple years. But really extended pressure. They got the ball off the glass. They pushed the tempo. They got easy earlier looks. And then when you have a guy like Wade Taylor who can get going so quickly, you just kind of let him go. I've been in those situations where you've been down big and you just turn to your best player and you say, hey, man, go get a bucket. And that's what it looked like. They're also at that pace, there was more space for Wade to play in. And that's what I'm talking about. The difference between like grinding it out and playing with pace is there's more space for Wade to find those holes in the defense and get easy earlier looks. It's just hard to do that for 40 minutes, especially with a guy like Wade who's being, every time he goes through the lane, he's being chucked. Against, when he comes off a ball screen, he's being hit. It's just, so I think you can take some of that, what we talked about earlier, you can push tempo earlier. Can't do it for 40 minutes, especially when you don't have a guy like Boots. Boots is kind of that calming factor that I think they really needed in the first half. When Houston goes on a run, if Wade misses a shot, it's like, okay, now we got to go back and defend. Boots finds pockets to get to his pull-up in a way that's really impressive, and it slows everybody down. He's got one of those and this is not a knock, he's got an old man game.
Right.
The dudes who go to the park or the YMCA or the gym who they never go real fast, and then, next thing you know, you just lost, 11-4. That's kind of Boots' game. They missed that, and I think they need more of that calming effect moving forward here.
We got about a minute left. All right. This team every year, and this has been my messaging this week, gets better when the season goes on, right? By the time conference play comes on, mid-conference play and beyond, Buzz's teams get better. Can they be good enough to still be a 4 to 6 seed team?
I think so. I think because of the SEC right now, I mean, you've got every team has, except for Ole Miss, who's 10-0, and you've got an outlier in South Carolina who's like 9-1. Everyone else has 2, 3, 4 losses. This is unlike most SEC that we see. So this team always gets better. They always find a way. And in SEC play, you're going to see more game planning by Buzz and his staff than you've probably ever seen. And that's what we see every year from him. He figures out ways to shut down opposing teams' best players, and really changes the outlook of things, just how hard they play come that conference play. And now they've been tested. So I think we're in a good spot. Wouldn't be surprised if they're a 4 to 6 seed. This SEC plays, they're just going to beat each other up. And at the end, it'll be the last man standing.
John, great work, man. I was happy to have you here, man.
I appreciate it. It's great to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, so that's going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Tuesday. Tomorrow is National Signing Day. Remember, 1 hour for premium subscribers live at 7 a.m. And then the 3-hour show begins like normal at 8 a.m. Brandon Leone, Chris Taylor, Stephen McGee will all be in studio. Billy, Bronny, myself, and I'm sure we'll have some other stuff to get into tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you mañana.